Welcome to the Monday Monologue. And first, I want to talk about some products that I'm going to be reviewing this week. HiFi sent me this little A20, and previously they had sent this guy, which is I think an A70 mono, and I compared it to like the Fozzy little mono of this chip amp at the same time, together with the same op amp sentiment stuff. And the main thing that was the deciding factor for me was the feature set. And it just seemed super goofy to me to have this subwoofer control and then a low pass filter adjustment for the subwoofer that's only working on the sub out RCA jack on the amplifier. Every active sub or powered sub on the planet has its own low pass filter adjustment and a volume gain adjustment on it. You don't need it on the amplifier, and it just complicated the whole front of it. And I guess if you're like into bling and a bunch of knobs, maybe you would think that makes sense, but especially for mono amps, having a volume control on it, and you got two volume controls you're dealing with, plus these two sub controllers, which if you only got one sub, which one are you using? It just didn't make any sense at all to me. And it's why I gave the win to Fozzy. And I explained this to the folks at HiFi, and then they came out with this A20. And it's got a high pass filter on it, which is beautiful. It's got an adjustment on the back, so you can adjust it between 60 and 200 hertz if you want to, or you can bypass it with a switch if you aren't using a sub with the little amp. And that's a feature set that's useful. And then it's got a very subdued look with the black volume knob with just a little red trim around it. And I like the form factor. It's a little thicker, which allows you to put those taller Burson op amps in it, just directly plugging them in. Instead of trying to make it the size of a deck of playing cards, they made it, it looks fairly substantial. And then it's got these vents on the side. There's not like bright red grills behind them and stuff. I mean, this is just a nice looking little Class D amplifier. Comes with a 48 volt brick 5 amp, so you don't have to worry about upgrading that. And just a very usable product, and it sounds nice. And this was the direct result, I feel like, of me and other reviewers saying, what are y'all doing? Why are you putting a low pass filter adjustment on these things and a big knob? It's something you're only going to set one time. Just put a little knob on the back for a high pass filter and you'd actually be doing something. And they listened to us. And I got to give manufacturers credit when they do things like that and they actually listen and improve their products and make stuff that's better for the audiophile community. And I'm actually going to be using this in my new downstairs system that I put together. I've got a little powered sub downstairs, so this with a high pass filter going to those little speakers, and then having my sub all set up with this, I think it's going to sound really nice. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling on that. The other thing, I'm going to be doing a review on this Horizon 5AR4, and this has been another project working with PS Vane, trying to work with them testing these and having them come up with a really robust tube. And I told them, I'm going to be hammering on this tube. I'm going to be using it in an amp that will kill most modern production 5AR4 tubes. It's got really low DCR in the transformer. It's got really high capacitance in the filtering, and new old stock tubes work fine. They don't even have to be like Mullers. They're just RCAs or Matsudas or any of those new old stock ones work fine. You stick a JJ in it, first or second power on, it just blows up, arcs out, it's dead. So the first one they sent me, unfortunately that's what it did. When I turned it on, arced out, blew the fuse, sent her an email and said, I told you I was going to be hammering on this, and yeah, it blew up. And so she said, Okay, we're going to pull those off the shelf because we don't want anybody having the problem that you had, because we know there's amps out there that were designed almost beyond the spec of the tube. And that amp has, it's my 300B, it's got 450, 500 volts, in the B+, and it's got, a lot of filtration. And like I said, it's really low DCR, and the tubes pull a lot of amps. And so, about 3 or 4 months go by, she sends me another pair of tubes and says, we beefed them up. Let us know what you think. And I told her I wanted to test them for a pretty long time before I did like a video on them. And they passed the test. They've been working great. I actually delivered one of my 300B amps for a customer with one of these tubes in it to let them try it. And I wouldn't be doing that if I didn't trust the tube. I wouldn't want one of my customers to have a rectifier tube failure and be emailing me or whatever. But it'll be interesting to see too, 6 or 8 months from now, if that customer's amp's still running good, mine's still running good, because it is one of those things when, what's the longevity of something until it's been long, you can't know what its life's going to be like. And so, anyway, we're going to be doing a review about this soon. That's a little mini review of it. Recommend these. So the other thing I wanted to talk to y'all about today is the demographics of the audiophile community. And I'm sure y'all know that somebody with a YouTube channel has access to like Google Analytics that shows the, age of the folks that are watching, the gender, and country they're from, and all that kind of stuff. And it does seem like that hi-fi stuff is pretty generally spread kind of evenly across the world. I get emails and stuff from folks from all over the world. But the thing that is very clear is it's mostly old guys. And like 60 and up. There's some down to about 50, and then it just falls off a cliff. And the industry needs to do something or it's going to die. And at first I was just not real sure why that it's only this older generation that likes hi-fi gear and listens to hi-fi gear. And then I started thinking about it more, and it actually makes sense. And I think there's a way to fix it. So what I think's going on, you have to think about that the folks that are going to be, in their 30s or something like that, 40s, that would be listening to music. When they were growing up, 15, 20 years old, they grew up during the early stages or the early years of the internet. And when smartphones were just getting started. But it was mostly, I think, the early days of the internet. And that's when Napster and all that file sharing stuff and torrents and, all that kind of stuff was going on. And it was like the MP3 era. And then the other thing that was going on at the same time, even with physical media, was the loudness wars. And so a lot of the music that was recorded during that era honestly sounds just bad when you play it on a nice hi-fi system, especially if you compare it to other music. And like a friend of mine, was interested in, he bought like a Britney Spears album, and then he bought like Madonna and some other stuff that was recorded around in that era. And I'd set him up with a turntable and a system, and he put his album on, and it was just like, good, that sounds horrible. And then I did bring over one of my Blue Note jazz albums, and I put it on. Frickin' sounds great. And then it made me realize that if that's the era of music that you're used to listening to, that got all compressed so that it could be smushed down even further down into the MP3 envelope, so it could be sent over dial-up internet, that stuff's never going to sound good. And So those people, you really don't have a need for hi-fi gear because the music that they want to listen to doesn't require it, or it doesn't exploit the quality that hi-fi has. And when we were growing, or when I was growing up, and I'm saying we because I'm assuming most of y'all are probably my age. I'm 66, and so y'all are probably that same era where there was really good hi-fi gear in a lot of houses. And so when they were mixing and mastering music, they knew that it was going to get consumed on high quality gear, and so it was made to use on that. And during this internet era, when the free music was out there flying around and the music industry didn't know what to do, and their sales fell off a cliff and all of that kind of stuff, that they were probably trying to cut corners on the cost of producing this music. So between the cost cutting, the loudness wars, everything being crunched down to MP3, and people just being used to crappy sounding music or not high fidelity, that whole generation doesn't understand what hi-fi is. And so I feel like that if we're going to keep this industry or this hobby going, things have got to change. And part of it, again, is to blame on the music companies and the mastering people and all that for dumbing down the quality of this stuff. And now we've got a lot of this music, at least the pop music, that's all auto-tuned and computer, like, the drums are all like laid out on a timeline and click and every note's perfect. And, that's not what people are going to sit down and listen to. They may bop along to it in their car, but that's not something you're going to, put on an album and listen to at night. And so some of that's going to have to change. And then we have to expose a younger audience to hi-fi and let them hear it. And to that end, I'm going to be creating a music club in my city. And I'm planning on doing it sort of like a book club, kind of, sort of. But it's going to be more that we have an art center in our, city center. And I've talked with the art ladies. They love this idea that I can come in once a month, set up some speakers and bring a tube amp and a turntable, have some, I call it ultra-fi, some really nice gear, and invite people to come out and, maybe have a room big enough for 15 or 20 people to come sit and listen to a playlist. And, not take requests, but it's like, here's what we're going to listen to today. I want to expose y'all to some different kinds of music. And let them hear what a really good hi-fi system can sound like. And then, to me, the idea is more, this is a way you can unplug and de-stress at the end of the day. Instead of coming home and hopping on social media and doom scrolling and, well, don't stop watching my channel, but you know what I'm saying. To turn off all those electronic devices. Turn off the phone, turn off your computer, and then go warm up your hi-fi gear, get out an album, clean it, put it on, and lay down on the couch and just close your eyes and relax listening to some really engaging music. And I just feel like that's missing in people's lives right now. And it's part of the reason I think that people kind of stay agitated, and, we see a lot of folks that are, I don't want to say everybody's mean, but everybody just seems to be just like stressed out. And I think something like this would be good for society, for people to realize, hey, I need to stop and smell the roses, and the stuff that's going on my computer or my phone right now just isn't important. And if you don't have time like that during your day, I try to do it every day. And without doing that, life just gets stressful. And anyway, so I'm hoping this little music club thing will introduce people to some music. And if you're in the Atlanta area, Dorville Art, D-A-R-T, it's going to be advertised through that art group. And you're welcome to come out and enjoy some music. Not going to be gear focused. This is like we're going to be talking about and listening to the music. So anyway, I'm kind of excited about that. And I'm hoping that the whole industry will... I mean, right now I know they're kind of like, go, 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 let's sell stuff to all these rich people before they die. I mean, that's kind of where the audiophile industry is right now. And if we don't do something to engage these folks that are like in their 30s and their 40s right now, in another 10 or 15 years when all of us are gone, there's not going to be anybody buying this stuff. So I don't want to see that happen. This is too important a thing to be able to enjoy music at this level to just let it die. So anyway, I think that's kind of it for the Monday Monologue. Oh, I do want to add that sometimes you have no idea how frustrating creating this content can be. Today, I sat down and spent like an hour and a half recording 5 or 6 different segments for this and future videos, and then realized that the microphone power adapter wasn't plugged in, and none of it's got any sound. So I got to go back and re-record all this. So, yeah. The fun of YouTube and making YouTube content sometimes isn't real fun, but hopefully I still look cheery. I'm pretty ticked off when I went to go edit it. It's like, oh my God, delete all this. So I think that's it for the Monday Monologue. I had some music, but it's not here. We'll save it for next week. Thank you, Oak Mountain Man, for sending me a birthday vinyl. That was super fun, and I do really enjoy it. Really fun stuff, but we'll share that next week. So, we're almost at 21K subs. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. Thanks to all you Patreon supporters, people that buy my gear, otherwise support the channel. Thanks for folks like Yima and PS Vane for trusting my opinions on this stuff and sending me gear to evaluate and review and test out for them and that kind of thing. And it just ends up being better products for all of us. So anyway, until next week, we'll see you for the next Monday Monologue.